Thank you very much. Well, if you do this, Rabbi, go ahead.
Sure.
Okay. So first of all, before we do that, let me just go to two things here. Again, we were doing the same thing we did Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, Sukkot, Simchas Torah, and we did this in Hanukkah to go through, because Yom Tov, there are hundreds of my all the different subjects that there are, as much as we major points about Purim, and we try to cover a little bit of each to have a general knowledge. So the first two things we start with is on page 1, which applies to all Yom Tovim, and that is the pasuk by Yomim Ha'elim Niskarim V'Nasim. So, everybody knows that today is also a special day, right?
Yes. Birthday and my mom's birthday.
And my grandson's birthday.
Oh.
He was born last night, yeah. Thank you.
Oh, yeah. He was born last night.
Last night, yeah.
Like a few years ago.
No, last night.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
My son had a baby boy last night, yeah.
No, it's okay. It's fine.
So it's a nice model to be there. We know that the Gemara says that also that the holy hunt of Purim was really in the schus of Zion Adar. Because of the story of Haman, that he drew lots and he thought Adar the best month, and he didn't realize because it's Moshe's birthday, so therefore he figured that doesn't really matter. Birthdays are nothing. That was his mistake. Some people give their child the name Moshe on the day of the birthday because it's Moshe Rabbeinu's birthday. But my son's name is Moshe, so he can't be there. Okay. So it's in the Megillah we have the words by Yomim Ha'elun Niskarim V'Nasim. So again, to see this inside, it's on page. Which page is it? That's probably right in the beginning. It's on page 3. Which means these days shall be remembered and celebrated. It's one of those psukim that are found hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times in the Rebbe Sichos and the Maimarim, but mainly in the Rebbe Sichos. And that is the simple pshat of these words. What do they mean? They should be remembered and celebrated. Okay, you should remember them and celebrate them. The Gemara says, is referring to the mitzvahs of Purim. Remembered means the mitzvahs you do through remembering, and that's reading the Megillah. And celebrated is the mitzvahs you do through action, which is Shalach Manas, eating the Suda of Purim, the practical things. That's what the Gemara says. The Arizal says there's something deeper here. And even though this is written in the Megillah in reference to Purim, but from here, in the Kabbalah and Chassidus derives that this applies to all Yom Tovim. This is the source, what we always hear about Yom Tov. And that is that Hayom Meilu, these days of Purim, the reason why it says plural, because there's 2 days, the 14th of Adar and the 15th of Adar. You probably must have heard that this year there's a 3-day Purim in Yerushalayim. Because in Yerushalayim, they do certain customs on Friday, certain things on Shabbos, and certain things on Sunday. Because they're supposed to read the Megillah on the 15th in Yerushalayim. So means like this, that if you remember the yontif properly, the nasim not only means that you will do what has to be done, but nasim means the yontif will reoccur again, will happen again. But what does that mean? The yontif only happened once, many years ago, almost 2,000 years ago, in Persia. It was a Russia called Haman. Whatever happened, happened then. What does it mean? The yontif reoccurs. So the Rizal explains that whenever something happens down here, any kind of miracle, is because Lamaila, in Shemayim, in the spiritual realm, Hashem reveals his light in an unprecedented way. A light which is not the normal light, but much greater, much brighter, much more unlimited light. And because it's an unlimited light, when it comes down here, we see it happening things that are above nature. So what happened physically happened once. But what happened spiritually, that this light of Hashem, whatever light that is, was revealed on a level that was never revealed before, every single year, during the 24 hours of Yud Daled Adar, this light is revealed once again. And the same is with Hanukkah, and the same is with all the Yom Tovim. Now, whatever light was revealed the first time that it happened, that light is repeated every single year, Baruchnius. And the only difference is that then it was revealed Baruchnius, and it also manifested in a miracle Begashmius. And when it happens every year, it's happening Baruchnius, and it affects us spiritually, but we don't see the manifestation. Begashmius, that is a miracle. We go out of Mitzrayim, or the sea splits, or the sun stops, all these miracles, we don't see it physically. But spiritually, whatever happened then happens every year. And then the question is, if we don't see it physically, so why do we celebrate it? What is it? How does it affect us? The answer is, it affects us mainly in a spiritual way. It affects our avodah that we have. If we do the customs and the laws of the yontif, through that we absorb this light and we internalize it, and this is a light that will help us in our avodah Hashem. And the Baal Shem Tov said, this explains another thing. If you want to take a look for a moment, the back, page 34. It's the Mishnah. And the Mishnah says, halacha in reference to Purim. I'm only going to do the first paragraph. Akeres ha-Megillah mafreya. Whoever reads the Megillah in an irregular manner. The mafreya means from before, which means instead of reading it in order, you read the last part first and the first part later. And I'll tell you, it's really something practical. Let's say you walk into a shul, and when you walk in, it's late. They're already in the middle of the Megillah, the second half. So you say to yourself, fine, I'll listen to the second half, and then there'll be another minyan, and I'll listen to the first half, and I'll catch up, and then I could leave in the middle of the first reading, because I don't have to hear the whole thing. And the interesting thing is when they read the Chumash, I think you can actually do that. Let's say you come to shul and it's up to Chamishi. You can listen from Chamishi to the end. And if there's another minyan, the person could hear from the beginning to Chamishi. By the Megillah, if you do that, you're not Yotzer. Okay, that's the halacha. But the Baal Shem Tov says, based on what the Arizal writes, there's a deeper meaning. What does it mean? Akeres ha-Megillah mafreya. If you read the Megillah and the mafreya like something that happened before, not now, happened once upon a time, then lo yotzo, you haven't really fulfilled and experienced Purim the proper way. Because it's not something which happened before, it's happening now. We explain this in every yontif, that the difference between yontif api nigla and api chassidus, api nigla is something which happened in the past, but we're learning from it. We're being inspired by something that happened 2,000 years ago. Api chassidus, it's happening now. Baruchnius, it's happening now. And if I do, what I need to do, I can absorb that. So every part of the Megillah, every part of the story has the meaning of it physically. Achashverosh is a king, Mordechai is a person, and Esther is a woman, and Haman and the Havdil is a Russia, And then when you learn the Megillah according to Chassidus, it's talking about different spheres and different inyanim ruchniim that are happening, interacting, and the way they interact, and all these things are relevant to us today. So this explains the story with the Mitzvah Rebbe. I think everyone knows the story with the Mitzvah Rebbe. It's a little bit more famous than this one. That the Alter Rebbe used to read the Torah. And one week he was away. What week was it? It was the week of Pashas Kisavei that has all we'll call it the opposite of bracha, that is spelled out. This will happen if you don't observe the mitzvahs. The Mitzvah Rebbe was a young boy, and when he heard the Torah reading, he fainted. And when they asked him, what happened? So he said, when he heard such terrible things, he fainted. So he said, but you hear it every year. They said, well, my father reads it. I don't hear the opposite. I hear the bracha that's in it. This story is found in Hayom Yom. It's a famous story. But there's another story with the Megillah. The Alter Rebbe used to read the Megillah as well. So one time, someone else read the Megillah. When they finished, the Mitzvah Rebbe said, that was a nice story. In other words, it's a nice story, but when you Alter Rebbe would read it, it had all the deep meanings of Chassidus and Kabbalah, what everything in the Megillah means. Okay, so based on that, we understand that just like in the time of Purim, what happened to Gashmias was there was an nitzachon, there was a victory against an enemy. Who was the enemy? Haman. So to now, on the day of Purim, we don't know maybe all the details, but the general idea is that the light of Hashem that shines on Purim, that we can absorb, and that gives us the strength, is also to overcome a certain enemy. And that enemy is Haman. So how do we explain that in Chassidus? That Haman wasn't just an ordinary wicked person, he was the descendant of Amalek. And there's a mitzvah to get rid of Amalek. But Amalek means physical people that are very wicked people, and therefore there's a mitzvah to eliminate them, to get rid of them. But we know what it says in Chassidus, that all the nations that are mentioned in the Chumash, they all represent a certain klipa. Which means that these goyim of this nation, they embody that klipa, that power, that force. But the truth is, we all have that klipa in a small scale within ourselves. So obviously there's a Haman and Amalek in me, and have to get rid of that Amalek. So Purim is the day of the year where Hashem gives us a injection, a booster shot, an injection which gives us the strength to get rid of our personal Amalek. And this lasts a whole year. And next year, Purim, we get another injection. So we have to understand what is Amalek. That's where Chassidus comes in, explaining what is Amalek on a personal level, and how do we overcome it. And this is what we're going to be talking about. One more thing before we go there is that there was a certain chassid, very big chassid, that the story of how he became a chassid of the Alter Rebbe was, he was in a shul, and in the shul happened to be one of the Alter Rebbe's chassidim. He was not a chassid, he was a very big Talmud Chacham, he was a very righteous person, but not a chassid. He was in shul, and in the shul was also another chassid who was called Rabbi Majeski, one of the biggest chassidim of the Alter Rebbe. And it was Punkt Shabbos Pasha Zachar. And he's watching this chassid, he's looking at his face, and he sees something's going on. He just never ever in his life saw anybody reacting that way when they read Pasha Zachar. So after the davening, he walks over to him and says, what did Amalek do to you that you hate him more than anybody else in this shul? Like he saw it on his face. So he sat him down and he explained to him what Amalek is up to Chassidus, and that was it. After that, he started to learn Chassidus and became a chassid, and not just a chassid, one of the biggest chassidim of the Alter Rebbe as well. One more thing before we go on. If we say that Mitzrayim is the klipa of this, is the embodiment of that klipa, what's the difference between Mitzrayim and the person who has it individually, personally? What's the difference between Amalek, the nation, or us, that we have it in us? What's the difference between Midian, that's a nation, or that what we have within us, or the other nations? Remember, we learned this when we were talking about Hanukkah, Yevonim. They also are a certain klipa, Greeks. And then we all have that klipa within ourselves. What's the difference? The difference is, like in the body, there's a field in medicine, if I understand it correctly, which is called infectious disease, which basically means that when you want to treat an infection, you not only treat the infection, but you try to find the source where the infection is coming from. And then you could give an antibiotic which is very precise and go precisely, like target that source. And when you get to the source, you get rid of things in a much quicker way, in a better way, in a healthier way, and so on. That's the difference. The source of this klipa is embodied in these people, which means if there would be no Amalek people on the planet, nobody would have this weakness at all, because there is a source. So even though we also have the Amalek klipa, and Amalek, we would call it bacteria or whatever it is, but nevertheless, by us, it's coming from a source. And they are the actual source itself. And that's why there's a mitzvah to get rid of the source. And the same with all the other klipas. So there's a number of things about the klipa of Amalek. If you look at page 1, these subjects, generally speaking, are not directly about Amalek, but on the other side of the page, a lot of the statements here, a lot of the quotes here are all related to Amalek. So I want to point out to a few, and then we'll learn the minor inside. One thing is number 25. Number 25 is Amalek begematria suffik. The word Amalek in Hebrew, the way it's spelled, the numerical value is suffik. Suffik, Samach is 60, Pei is 80, and Kuf is 100. So 180 and 60 is 240. It has the same match as Amalek. Ayin is 70. Mem is 40. Lamed is 30. So 70 and 70 is 140. And Kuf is 240. So that's the same gematria. That's one thing about Amalek. Another thing about Amalek that stands out is based on the pasuk Asher Korcha Baderech. Korcha means you met Amalek on the road. So let me show you where this word comes from. I made a copy here. Yes.
The suffix mean a doubt.
Doubt. I didn't say what it means?
No.
That was okay.
I
wasn't sure that you knew. No, suffix means doubt, yes. Page 9. So it says remember what Amalek did to you. Adar on the way as you went out of Egypt. I underlined it because I'm going to explain later what it means. It says the next pasuk says Asher Korcha Baderech. He happened upon you on the way, like he came across you on the way, and he attacked you, and so on. So the word Korcha, which means happened to sort of bump into you, Rashi brings down from the Gemara that also in Hebrew, Korcha means cold. He made you cold. And in order to explain that, Rashi gives a mashal. The mashal is also from the Medrash. What's the mashal? The mashal is that there was a hot bath, and the water was so hot that it was actually bubbling. People were standing around it and saying that this is water, you can go near it. And there was one wild person that said, nah, it's not a problem. I can go in. And everybody said, no, it's hot boiling water. As soon as you go in, then you'll be burned. And he jumped in. And the truth is, as soon as he bumped in, his whole body got boils, got from head to toe. He jumped out. And what the Medrash says is, even though he got burnt, but he cooled all the water in the eyes of the people. In other words, he didn't cool all the actual temperature, but it means in the mentally, in the minds of the people, the water was not as hot as it was before, which means before the water was untouchable. The fact that he jumped in, even though he got burned, it took away that sense of, no, it's untouchable. It's not untouchable. I jumped in. You can go in there. What's the nimshal? When the Yidden went out of Mitzrayim, all the nations of the world were in awe. The words in the Chumash are that the nations of the world were frozen, they melted. They were beside themselves. They couldn't believe that Mitzrayim, which was the superpower of the world, and it says that throughout the entire history of Egypt, no slave ever succeeded to escape. And here, a whole nation escaped, and Mitzrayim was humiliated. Hashem pretty much washed the floors with them, with the 10 plagues and everything that happened. So the whole world was in awe of the Yidden and Hashem. And what did they say? These people are untouchable. Comes along Amalek, and he says, yeah, we can attack them. What happened? He got beaten. He was destroyed. But what he did do was he cooled off this heat in the eyes of the people. In other words, this awe that they had for the Yidden, and this feeling that the Yidden are untouchable, or Hashem is untouchable, don't start up with him, because it's totally beyond you, that got lost, because even though he got burned. So Amalek is also cold, cools you off from enthusiasm about Torah mitzvahs. All this will explain and elaborate. I'm just giving the headlines, so to speak. Then number 20 is another one, and soon we'll learn this inside. Number 20 is another one. It says, Amalek, Yedei Esri Beinai, is a klipa, a Russia that knows his creator, he knows his master, and he intentionally goes against him, rebels against him. In other words, there are certain people who do evil, they don't recognize Hashem, they don't feel it. But Amalek, he knows it. He's like everybody else. He saw what happened in Mitzrayim, so he knew what it's all about. He knew who Hashem is. He knew what Hashem could do. But nevertheless, intentionally, he rebels. So all these things are interconnected, but to understand it properly, we have to learn at least part of a mimer to get a better understanding. So I'm going to relearn and go through briefly till we get to the new part, the mimer that Rabbi Dubov started in here, which is a mimer from Rebbe Rashab.
No, the new mimer.
But the content of this mimer was, we heard it also from the Friedrich Rebbe and our Rebbe, Maimorim and Sichos, talked about a lot. So let's see. It's on page 25 of the booklet. And he told me he did the first part, then it went towards the end. I want to go through the whole thing. I think it's all really helpful. Well, to understand whatever it said before. So there's a mimer from the Rebbe Rashab, which he said in the year Tov Reish Samachay, which is 1905. Purim 1905, or Parsha Zachor 1905. Let me do one more thing, I'm sorry. Back to basics. There are 3 places in the Chumash where, let's go back to the Chumash, where it talks about Amalek. And a lot of the sources that will come up in the Maimarim are from these places. So one is in page 7, that's Bamidbar. This is in Parshas Balak. and this is part of the prophecies that Bilam pronounced when he wanted to curse the Jews. Instead of curses, blessing came out. One of them was this: Vayaras Amalek. When Bilam saw Amalek, Vayisem Mishalei, he took up his, means he was doing his sorcery. And he said, Reishis Goyim Amalek. The first of the nations to attack the Jews is Amalek. But his fate shall be everlasting destruction. He'll be destroyed forever. One pasuk. A lot of my mornings start with that pasuk. The next one is page 8. That's the pasuk which we had in Vishalach. We just had that in the parsha, where Malach attacked the Yidden, they went out of Mitzrayim. And here too, where do you see what it says?
Whoa.
The whole parsha of Malach. But look at pasuk Yud Daled, the 14th, where it says, Hashem said to Moshe, Save Zayz Sefer, write this down, it should be remembered forever. Put this into the ears of Yeshua. Ki moche emche zecher Amalek, I will erase the remembrance of Amalek mitachas hashamayim, from beneath the heavens. And the third one is in Shemos. This is the one which we say every day. Those who say the 6 things to remember, one of them is Amalek. That's what we say. Zocher she'osach Amalek. Remember what Amalek did to you, but that would say when you went out of Egypt. So these are the 3 sources. Page 10 and 11. Page 10 is where you have it in the Rambam, and he counts the mitzvahs. And there's 2 mitzvahs, 188 and 189. One is, when it says 188, look at the Rambam. By this injunction, we are commanded that among the descendants of Esau, even though there are many descendants, we're to exterminate only the seed of Amalek, male and female, young and old. And this is in the pasuk where it says, and you should wipe out the memory of Amalek. 189. By this injunction, we're commanded to remember what Amalek did to us when he attacked us in an unprovoked way. So these are the mitzvahs of Amalek. So now we're going to explain what is the avodah of getting rid of Amalek, Baruchos. And really, if you think of it, without understanding Baruchnius, there's things that here that are really shocking. Why? What did Amalek do? He attacked us on the way that he was the first one to attack us. That's a terrible thing. The whole world was in awe, and he attacked us. Could you compare that to what Mitzrayim did? What did Mitzrayim do? They had us as slaves for 210 years, tortured them. They gave them all sorts of horrible things to them. With the babies, they threw into the water, put them into the bricks. Horrible things. There's no mitzvah to wipe out the remembrance of Mitzrayim. What did Amalek do? They attacked us only one time, and forever they should be erased. And not only them, their children, their grandchildren, their descendants. How does that make sense? And unless you understand there's something deeper going on, Baruchnius, you can't, no way that you can really understand this commandment. So obviously it must mean that this nation contains in it a certain, I guess like a certain poison, which is a threat to the rest of the world, and definitely a threat to Yidden. And therefore we're commanded to, just like in the body, if God forbid, there's a place in the body that's poison, and from there it could spread to the rest of the body. As painful as it is, you have to cut it out, because by doing that, you're saving the rest of the body. And that's what Amalek is. So there's something here, Baruchnius, in this nation that is dangerous and a threat to the rest of everything else. And that's why there's such a mitzvah. So this is what my mom talk about. What is it in Amalek that's so. So before we go into the actual words, let's start by saying that these words, Reishis Goyim Amalek, the first of the nations to attack you was Amalek, has two meanings. One is chronologically. They were the first to attack us when we went out of Mitzrayim. And after they did it, and other nations started to feel, okay, the Yidden are not untouchable. But there's also a deeper meaning, is the first of all the other nations. This is a klipa that leads to all other klippas. And that's why it's something which is so threatening, and something which has to be eradicated completely. Let's start with the Maimon, where he explains the difference between all the other negative character traits and Amalek. So again, in the booklet, it's page, where is it? Page 25. If anybody wants to look up this Maimon, where it is, it's the Maimon, Sefer Maimon of the Rebbe Rashav, Tavri Samachei, Oiz Beis. Tzarech Lahavim, we need to understand, I have to the difference between Amalek and Chol HaGoyim. What is the difference between Amalek and all the other nations? Chol HaGoyim, all the nations of the world, Yizbaru, Sof Kosof, will be refined and elevated. They'll become included in Kedusha when Mashiach comes. They'll all be transformed. Like it says, Oz Epech Alamin, Sofa Brura. When Mashiach comes, I will transform the nations. They will speak in a clear language. They'll all call in the name of Hashem. Amalek is different. Ein lo bira v'tikun klal. He will never be elevated. Achrisei adei oived. That's what the words of Bilam means. That his end will be destruction. They'll be destroyed forever. And like I said, what did they do worse? On the contrary, think of all the other nations, what they did to us, much worse than what Amalek did. Amalek was a one-time attack, mainly, and nevertheless, the punishment for that is like beyond comparison. What is it? Why is it? All the other nations, even the 7 nations, which is the source for all the others. Knani, Achiti, they're all the other side, the opposite of each one of the midas. What does it mean by only the midas? Meaning nothing deeper than that. Which means, just like there are the midas in Kedusha, and this is the 7 paras, the 7 cows that Parah saw in his dream. There were 7 good cows and 7 bad cows. The 7 good cows are the 7 midas, Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, Netzach, Yesod, Malchus, of Kedusha, and the 7 bad cows were Chesed, Gvura, Tiferes, and so on of Klippa. So when it comes to other Averas, that's what Chazal say, no one would do an Avera unless a spirit of foolishness came over him. What is the spirit of foolishness? Bad character traits. They cover up on the emes. The person feels that even though he doesn't have Avera, it doesn't affect his Yiddishkeit. He doesn't really disconnect from Hashem by doing an Avera. That's the feeling. And therefore he feels safe to do the Avera. If he would know, if he know that every Avera really has an effect on severing my connection to Hashem, he would never do the Avera. Like it says in Tanya. So why does he do it? Ruach Shtus covers up the emes, and nidmala, it appears to the person nasa nifra. We learned about this in Basilagani, that is a certain numbness, like a person who gets numb with anesthesia. You can cut the person's body and they feel no pain. So this is the klipa makes the person numb spiritually. not sensitive spiritually, and you don't feel. But if a person would feel that by doing an avera they're cutting themselves off, they would never do it. So we're talking about even people that eat treif, even people that are machal Shabbos, even people that do any kind of avera. Mainly, it's done because they don't feel that they're cutting off. Elish. But b'derech klal, generally speaking, mitzad is gabras hatayva, who shechech legamel lekus. What does it mean that the 7 bad cows? The fact that I have a taiva to do other things, let's say the person has a very strong desire, a burning desire to eat food that's not kosher. So that desire doesn't allow him to feel what goes wrong when he doesn't have avera. The person has a desire to do another kind of avera in areas of tznius, in areas of honesty with money. Because he has such a strong desire, it'll cover up and he won't feel what goes wrong when he's doing it, what's going wrong spiritually. So that's how these two things are opposite each other. As we see, that not only does a person lose his sensitivity to Kedusha, shigam sichli ma'abed. Sometimes people lose their brains. They're basically saying that he loses his common sense because he's so overcome with taiva. Shiyasa kamishtusim, they lose certain things which are so outrageously foolish at shemamala taibasa because he has a certain taiva. The doime benafshe, and he's thinking, ein ish raya. So what he's saying is basically what you see every other day in the news of a certain person that did something which is corrupt, and something which is now in the news and everyone's talking about it. It's embarrassing, humiliating for him, for his family. Why did he do it? Where was his brain? What was he thinking? And the answer was, he wasn't thinking. He was so obsessed with what he wanted that he just thought nothing will go wrong. No one sees, no one knows, no one will ever find out, which is foolish because ultimately things leak out. We see this all the time. So why would you think that's going to leak out and what you're doing is not going to leak out? And the answer is because when a person is so passionate, so passionate about their taiva, they lose their true sense of judgment. That's begashment. How much more so they lose their true sense of judgment, the ruchnis. That means the real motivation that this person doesn't have Avera it's not an act of rebellion. Even if he says, I don't care, it's really not rebellion. It's really just taiva. I have a taiva, I want something very, very much, and therefore I'm not going to pay attention to anything else. I don't care. I won't let it pay. I won't even think about it. And we find, people that, let's say, wanted to marry out, and family members are begging and pleading and talking, and no, nothing matters, doesn't care. The truth is, it's not because they don't care about Yiddishkeit. And the proof of the pudding is that very often, after a certain point, they turn around and they embrace Yiddishkeit. So what happened before? Because they were so involved and so passionate about what they wanted that affected the way they think about it. That affected that they didn't feel what they're doing to themselves spiritually by doing what they're doing. So that means even when it looks like so clearly this person's being rebellious, in essence, they're not being rebellious. They just have a taiva, they have a passion. And there are 7 meters, so there are 7 kinds of passions. And these are the passions that make the person leave. Okay, we will continue from here. Let's see. Okay. See you later. I see we will have the class on Mashiach, right? Or mistaken. No, class Mashiach is usually the last hour.
Yeah.
So we haven't seen Marambam. So I'll see you by seeing.
Yes. Do you have the unregistered question for Adar?
Well, I don't know, I just, I wouldn't even see that.
Thank you. I got to go to my office.
That's not in front of you. Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, baby. I thought trading this day, don't need my. Bye, Yeah. The other part. What's the other part? We're supposed to, yeah. We haven't read my favorites, right?